Thank you so much for coming, everyone. This is a brilliant turnout, and this is our first Sun Plus Readers event of this kind, so it's amazing to get so many of you here this soon. We really appreciate it, and especially being members of Sun Plus as well. And I'm sure you are all here for, not for me, sadly, but for a very controversial woman who is, I would say now, one of the most divisive people in the UK. She is obviously a Sun columnist, and I think, while I know, speaking from a personal perspective, I don't necessarily agree with everything she says, I definitely agree with her right to say it. And tonight what we really want is you guys to get involved. This is your chance to pose questions to Katie, and we'd also love you to tweet about the event as well. So we're using the hashtag tonight, hashtag Ask Katie, because we are being streamed online live right now. And so basically what we'll do for each topic, we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. So put your hands up, start thinking, and please, please give her a hard time as well. I hope you don't all love her. But now I would like to introduce on stage the very controversial Katie Hopkins. Now, Katie, obviously, we are a newspaper, so we're going to dig into you a little bit later on tonight, find out what makes Katie Hopkins tick, what made you who you are. But first, you have been involved in about 3 national news stories within the last 3 days, which I think we definitely need to discuss. So first up, German wings and depression. Now, if you guys haven't been all across Twitter and online over the last 24 hours, you may have seen Katie tweet about the terrible tragedy in the Swiss Alps and sort of link this to the issue of depression in society. And you said, Katie, on Twitter, sympathy for the co-pilot is making me angry. If you were suicidal, for goodness sake, top yourself in private, attention-seeking bastards. But Katie, you also said that people who are depressed don't need any medical help. What they need is a pair of running shoes and fresh air. So seriously, do you not believe that depression is a genuine medical condition?
Clearly, some people have depression and some people are depressed. My rather wider point that you can't make necessarily in 140 characters or less is that we are massively over-medicating and over-prescribing and over-diagnosing depression. It has become the holy grail of medical illnesses. And I really do feel, you know, Sweden in the last 20 years, 1,000% increase in depression. Here in the UK, last 10 years, 400% increase in depression. You know, it depresses me just hearing those statistics, quite frankly. I might pop off to the doctors tomorrow and tell them I'm fed up and get some tablets. Ultimately, we have become Prozac nation. We know why it's happening. Americans lead and we follow. There's a journal where all psychiatric illnesses go. It's DSM-5. And DSM-5, that very interestingly named document, extended itself. It was broadened when it's obviously gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's counting, Dan. Difficult for a celebrity journalist. DSM-5. And it was broadened to include, you can be depressed after just 2 weeks of sadness. And I think that is way too easy a diagnosis for depression. So that's the longer iteration explanation for my points on Twitter. I think that's quite reasonable and rational. But as for that co-pilot, if you want to go kill yourself on your own. Don't take 149 people down with you. I have no sympathy. It's very kind of you to clap, by the way. It's very kind. I don't normally get claps. I normally get boos.
I think there's far too many this early.
But anyway, don't take 149 people down with you. And I'm sick, actually, of our front pages being filled with that co-pilot who's a Weasley little ferret, and I'm glad he's gone. Actually, I'd far rather talk about the pilot and the children and the mothers and the babies and the men and the women that were involved in this thing, and the pilot that's the true hero who was still trying to break down that door as the wing started hitting the mountainside. He's the hero in this. Start talking about him. Stop talking about people, little ferrets that may or may not have depression.
But obviously you suffer from epilepsy, which is something that you've spoken about relatively openly. And you obviously have at times in your life struggled as a result of that. You know, you weren't able to pass out in the army as a result of that. So surely you can see that people who are suffering from depression are going to have medical issues that they actually have to cope with.
And of course, there is going to be a percentage of people that have genuine depression. And I'm really not talking about them. I'm parking them on one side. I'm really talking about this idea that if you start to enable people to be medicalised, they start to believe they have a medical condition, and that changes the way you look at life. I don't see myself as a sufferer of epilepsy. I rather take it on. I rather look at it as a challenge. You know, I've dislocated both my arms 28 times in the last 6 months. That's just the deal with my epilepsy, but it makes me run faster, perform harder, want to prove that I will beat it. That's the sort of thing it is. So I think we mustn't be victims, but I think giving yourself a label or a badge, epilepsy, depression, whatever, can sometimes change the way you think and feel about life, whereas I think you need to get out there and take it head on.
Okay, so that is controversy 1.
Good.
Controversy
One down.
2.
2.
I'll use the name Simon Denchuk and see the look on your face. But look, he has now reported you to the police over comments that you made equating men of Pakistani origin with child abuse. And he said, I don't think we should beat around the bush here. Katie Hopkins is inciting racial hatred. What's your reaction to what he's done, and what is the situation? Have you heard from the police? Do you know if this is going to be taken any further?
I'm very grateful that my Renter Clapathon crowd joined me tonight. I'd like to thank you. You'll get your tenner later. Thanks very much. It's hard recruiting these guys, but they will come for money. So thanks very much for that. So to be honest, we haven't spoken about it yet, but the complete situation with the police and Simon, I need to tell teacher Denchuk is the police have now requested that if you find something that does not offend you, that I say, please tell them. They're a bit tired of all these other reports because, frankly, it's getting a bit tedious and it's wasting taxpayers' cash. Ultimately, he did go squealing to the IPCC to complain about things I've said. Now, it might just be my hunch, but I think it might be to do with the fact that he's been favoriting porn sites and the fact that actually a large part of his constituent are Pakistani and he needs to win that vote. So this is a good way of vote winning for him. He didn't like the column that I wrote in The Sun on Friday. He didn't particularly enjoy my tweets asking him why he felt it was appropriate to fly the Pakistani flag in a town that has been aggrieved so particularly by gentlemen of Pakistani origin. And I think I asked fairer questions. I think it's important that someone has the balls to speak out. None of our MPs seem to have those balls. Not many blokes seem to have them. And as a questionable woman, I do. But yeah, so where it stands at the moment is it does sit with Greater Manchester Police. I'm not supposed to talk about it. Obviously, I am. And if I get arrested, so be it. But at least I said what I thought, and I'm not frightened.
But it was, you haven't put it in the full context, which is that they raised this flag because it was National Pakistan Day, and it was raised for less than an hour. And you also, you made this a race issue by tweeting pictures of a number of men that were Pakistani, and said, your Pakistani friends saw young white girls as fair game when they abused them. Do not lecture me on community cohesion, fool. Why did you turn that into a race issue? Why was there any relevance to the race of the victim?
I didn't make it a racist issue, but I do think raising a Pakistani flag and then talking about community cohesion, I think those two things don't work in partnership. I'm ultimately fed up with the fact that we can't speak out about this being a question of these gentlemen being of Asian origin. He said that the reason this sort of stuff lay undisclosed for so long is because people are frightened of the race issue, and the first thing that he's done is said the race issue and gone running to the police. I think if someone had run to the police maybe 10 years ago when this stuff was happening, that would have been a brave and bold thing to do. Running to the police over Katie Hopkins seems to be trivialising the issue somewhat.
But all of the 8 men were arrested, though. Arrested and charged.
The 8 men were arrested, they were of Pakistani origin, and they got 77 years between them. I hope they never see the light of day.
And your campaign against Labour, that's our third controversy. And
Dan?
A very controversial tweet.
Do you work for The Sun?
About Ed Miliband's wife, Justine. Of course I do.
Do you, darling?
Of course I do, and we ask the tough questions.
Your loyalty seems twisted.
Not at all. Not at all, Katie. And you made a comment about Ed Miliband's wife, Justine, saying, pollsters say Justine is the least popular of party wives. He might stick her head in the oven and turn on the gas.
Okay. So yet again, 140 characters on Twitter. Let's give this thing some context. So I wrote a jolly piece for The Sun. I had said, look, during the debates, if Ed Miliband wins this election, I will leave the country, and I will.
But are you serious about that?
Yeah, I'm going to leave the country.
Where will you go?
Bahamas, don't know, darling. Somewhere fun. Somewhere fun. So anyway, I said, look, Ed Miliband is just Russell Brand in a chuffing suit. If he wins, I will leave the country. Because I'm sick of this, oh, life's so unfair. It's all about inequality. Ooh, I'm a worker's man. Ooh, I look weird eating a bacon sandwich. Can I win this election? Hell yeah! Am I from the Southern Baptist Church? Hell yeah! Am I a puny little weed? Hell yeah! So I said, look, I'll leave the country if you win. And then I wrote a jolly little piece for your team at The Sun online, which was the most read piece online that day.
It's for the Sun Nation website, which obviously you should all check out.
Dan had content that day, but my content was better. And so I was making some analogies, and you'll know that the kind of thematic from a political perspective that week was about kitchens. Ed had a thoroughly boring second kitchen. Dave's kitchen was a bit more interesting. And so I went with the kitchen thematic. And so I was saying, look, he'd commit fratricide if he needed to in order to win. Actually, Justine's the least, kind of popular wife because she is a miserable-looking weasel. And I didn't say that. I just did. So maybe he'll stick her head in the oven if he's had enough of her. It was relative to kitchens and kitchen speak. Now, let's bear in mind, I was reported to the police not so long ago for my tweets about Palestinians. I'm not allowed to speak about that. But if I was anti-Jewish, would I have been reported to the police for my Palestinian tweets? Probably not. I didn't even associate gas ovens with said Jewish population. It was much more about kitchens, Ed Miliband, and the fact that if he leads this country, I will leave it because he is not the man to take us to the next general election where Boris will take over and will lead this country. Finally, personality politics. Uh-oh.
But it is important that we put the other side here.
The editor would like me to shut up.
Well, I think it is very important we put the other side here, which is that Gillian Walnes, who is the executive director of the Anne Frank Trust in the UK, described you as a simple-minded, publicity-craving woman who speaks before she thinks, and said even taking out the Holocaust references and the Miliband's family connection to the Holocaust, why do you need to be quite so personally offensive and abusive? Obviously, Justine isn't running for office herself. Was that fair? Do you regret what you said?
No, I never regret anything I say. I think it's really important to stand by things you say, actually. I hear people apologising. you know, all over the place to cover themselves in glory, and I don't really agree with that. That lady's managed to highlight whatever she does. That's marvellous.
The Anne Frank Trust UK,
the Anne
obviously
Frank Trust UK.
Very important thing.
She's made it about something she wants it to be about. It was never about that when I wrote about it. Mine was a jolly, funny little article where I suggested, he said, you know, can I get can I lead this country? Hell yeah. Well, hell no. I'd rather you got chronic oral syphilis. That was another line in that article, which was actually very funny. I recommend it to you.
So,
did you retweet it, Dan? Did you retweet it? No.
Of course not. So while we are talking controversies, does anyone in the room have any questions that you would like to put?
Sorry, Dan, I know you're chairing this and everything, but whatever. Do feel free to ask literally anything. So I am, yes, good, hold on. I am completely, it's impossible to offend me. So don't, you know, in normal society, normal rules, all that, this is closed door. Feel free to say and do anything. Well, maybe not do anything.
You know we are being broadcast live right now.
I accept that.
Sun+.
I'm fearless. Darling, sorry.
No, so we'll get the microphone to these two guys for the questions for this slot. So do you have the microphone there in the green shirt?
Have you got a microphone, darling? You've got to wait.
Oh, we'll get the mic to this
darling,
man.
you've got to wait for a microphone. I know.
Oh, hello. Hi, Katie. Nice to meet you. I know you're quite outspoken already from heaven. Well done, by the way. Fantastic. Someone owned Jeremy.
I'll just catch the crowd up on that one. So I did. I have a sort of following in the gay community, whom I love, and I did Gay Porn Idol recently. So that was at Heaven nightclub. Yes, it was epic. It was epic. It was a good night.
Oh, yes, it was.
Oh, yes, it was. Were you naked?
No, I wasn't. I was in the nest with the DJs watching you.
Okay, good.
Good fun. Anyway, you were saying about how you are outspoken and these people like to comment on you. This isn't one of my questions now, but I'd like you to know that these people, I don't think, would have the front to confront you with those questions. They like to speak about this behind someone else and it goes out there rather than them actually talking to you about it. Whereas you are someone who will say what you think about that person right in front of them or
on
elsewhere
Twitter.
And let them... On Twitter's fantastic because they can comment back. Katie doesn't hide things.
It's got a little bit like a monologue, less like a question, but it's perfect.
What is your question?
Well done, Dan.
Do you have a question or has Katie
No,
paid you?
Sorry, Katie.
You're the plant.
My question perhaps doesn't relate so much to that, but it can be included with that. It kind of refers to Big Brother. Sorry, I know time, Katie.
I'm getting
However,
old.
yes, me too. With Big Brother, you know,
we're going to come to Big Brother later. It was if anyone had any specific questions about these three controversies, which
my apologies, jumping in.
We need to get you a microphone, darling, don't we? Well done,
we've got
guys.
two mics, so we'll get
there
one
we go.
to this man in the green shirt. What is your question,
It started
sir?
well.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Katie. It's just has that?
Oh,
you know.
Tell us your name and where you come from. It feels like that, doesn't it? Go on, go on.
I'm Hamish. I come from Scotland, as you can tell. So.
Is this going to go well, Hamish?
Yeah, I love you. I'm my biggest fan.
Oh.
It's just over the weekend, you know. I think court records, police records, social services records all prove, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, that Pakistani Muslim males are responsible for raping young white British girls. So, but if you point that out, or if you talk about it, you're a racist, or you're indulging in hate speech. So, how much more ludicrous will our society become? When will Britain find its backbone? When can we call a spade a spade? You know, when can we talk about the issue?
Yes. And in a way, I think that's probably where I come in, is to raise that issue. Now, if that involves me being charged with something or trooped into a police station, then the Sun barrister is actually a formidable gentleman whom I love dearly. And if not, then at least I've highlighted the issue and got people talking. And that's what I hope to do. And always kind of the thing people miss about me a little bit, people don't miss my nose, quite easy to spot. But the thing people do miss about me slightly is that whilst I have very strong opinions on everything, in fact, I really value the fact that other people don't have those. So I don't require that anybody agree with me. I don't request that anybody share my point of view. I merely say it, And then I'm completely happy that people think I'm morally abhorrent and am descended from Satan and am the second worst person after Putin. That's absolutely perfectly fine. Yeah, so that's where I am with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So they are the current controversies. Now, I want to go back a little bit. And something you don't really like doing is talking about yourself and your personal life and some of your feelings, which is something that we're going to do here
back in the room,
to get to know you a little bit more. And one thing I'm interested in, you talk about the fact that you don't care about getting these threats or turning people off. But, you know, the sorts of threats that you've pointed out you've had in the past are things such as, I'm going to come around your house and take your head off with a machete. I hope your children get killed in a car crash. And obviously, your persona has a big effect on your family. And we interviewed your husband, Mark, in The Sun quite recently, who's sort of the opposite to you. How do you feel about the impact that your job has on your husband and your 3 children?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a tough one. My children and my family, there's a sort of sense from people that, oh, poor them, they should be taken into care. That's just my husband. People know Mark, just so you know. People expect me sometimes because of this weird persona the media have of me, which is fine, I accept that. As a sort of wanker banker. They expect me to be married to someone in a suit that earns a lot of money. Actually, Mark's known as Lovely Mark, which is bloody annoying in the first place. Lovely Mark, people say it with a sort of question mark at the end. What, you're married to Lovely Mark? Like, that would be inconceivable that I could be married to somebody nice. He has a beard, he wears soft shoes and has a skeleton as his wedding ring. That's the sort of guy we're talking about. So that's, and worse still, he works at a bloody donkey sanctuary. If there's one thing worse than having a husband called Lovely Mark, it's the fact he works at a donkey sanctuary as well, because women love that shit. I'll just say for the record, the donkey sanctuary gets 28 million a year without trying. I'd shoot the bloody lot. But anywho, back to the topic. Later in life, because you all look very young, but later in life, if you're ever fed up with any of your relatives and you're on your deathbed, do change your will, leave it all to the donkeys. They've got a specialist lawyer, particularly for that job, just so you can show real spite after you've died. I intend to do that. I think that'd be fabulous. But yeah, my children are still at the age 10, 9 and 6, where they still think it's pretty cool, actually, that mum's sort of a bit well known. They weren't allowed to watch any of the last hoo-ha I've been involved in terms of Celebrity Big Brother. And so they are somewhat isolated from it. They don't have iPads, they don't have telephones. I don't believe in any of that trot. They live down in the countryside, in the West Country. Our house is rigged up to the local police station. That's just my life, I suppose. But they're certainly very well looked after. People always say, well, and they did actually someone questioned tonight, well, what's that hideous woman doing out? Why isn't she at home looking after her children? And I like to explain that, well, I work like a husband and hope that maybe it gets through to a few people. So, yeah, they are somewhat isolated from it because they're down in the countryside. Do feel free to answer that. Or if you want me...
Or even turn it on silent.
Do you want me to answer it, darling? We'll give someone a little surprise. Do you want... No? No, terribly embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed, darling. No one even heard. No one even noticed.
Now, obviously, in my day job, I ask celebrities about their private life a lot, and your private life has been colourful, to say the least. And you talk about your marriage with Mark, and obviously the way that the world first came to know Mark was some very infamous pictures of you both in a field, up to something very intimate, and at the time, he was a married man.
Oh, you managed to not do a shocked face at the back end of that. That was very good.
Nothing from you shocks me, Katie. But so let's talk about that time. What was that like? Because you worked together at the Met Office.
Yes.
It was an office romance, and he didn't leave his wife before sleeping with you in the field. Is that correct?
Imagine that, Daniel. Imagine. So, yes, that's all very true. And I kind of say to people, you know, I worked in an incredibly dull, for some reason, I ended up in one of the most dull public sector institutions there is on the planet. They tell the weather and they do it really badly. So I need to get out and find some distraction. And I do love the countryside. I am a country girl. I believe in fresh air and filling your lungs with it. And yes, I did have sex in a field. And I think, yeah, exactly. I think if you're offended by that, you need to get over yourself. He talks about the fact he spends his day talking to sort of pretty people. He knows Nadia. So I would contest that view very strongly.
She's a very beautiful woman. Very beautiful woman. But the point being, though, that wasn't... Obviously, your first husband as well was in a relationship, I think.
Yes, I stole my first husband as well. Get over it.
But you're someone who can judge a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I judge a lot of people. But in
Do
the
you
sense
understand
that
why people judge you
I get your
for that?
point. And I judge a lot of people. I have my view on a lot of people. But, you know, I really welcome everyone's view on me. So some people might think I'm a disgusting harlot of a woman who doesn't deserve the right to speak. That view is particularly kind of strong at the moment. But actually, I rather welcome that because we are all so different. Some people might meet their husband at 16 and stay married to the same guy all their life. I consider that to be a little closeted for my tastes. And I say, if you don't look after your husband, then yes, probably I'll take him. So do a better job.
How does Mark feel about that? Like, do you get the sense that he's scared that you're going to leave him one day?
No, I get the sense Mark thinks he's rather lucky. How many birds do you meet that want to have sex in a field? Not that many. Come on. No, look, Mark is I have to say, Mark is lovely Mark. And I don't listen, but there's about 2 men I listen to on this planet. One is David Dinsmore.
The editor of The Sun.
Yes, the editor of The Sun. If David speaks, pretty much I do what he says. And the other guy I listen to is Mark, because he's really wise. He does that thing where if someone offends you, he doesn't reply until the next day. If someone upsets him, he waits and makes an appropriate response. If the children are reading, he acts like he's interested and listens. If they've made horrible sausage rolls at school, he'll eat one. But as a result, I do listen to him, and if he says something, I will generally do what he says, because he's quite wise and he tends to know best. So if he tells me to wind my neck in, I wind my neck in.
I am glad that you didn't meet in the donkey sanctuary.
Yes, that's a relief.
Yes. So your upbringing, though, was surprisingly traditional and quaint. You grew up with a very middle-class mum and dad who were very hard-working. You have a sister who's obviously not in the public eye, but you were a very tight-knit family by all accounts. What do they make of your career choice?
So I have a really, really, really normal family. So I mean normal in the sense that they're just quiet people, they're shy people, they're proud people, but they don't want to be in the limelight, they don't want to be the spotlight. You know, when you see those really tragic mums on Celebrity Big Brother, like desperate to get in the sort of spotlight, that's not my parents at all. That's not what they do. My sister's really normal and does very normal stuff. She's been married to the same guy forever. And so it is just me that's the peculiar black sheep of the family.
Are you close to them?
Yes, we're really close. So I spent my 40th with them. We go away each Christmas together. We're a really close family. My parents are integral to my childcare system. So certainly my parents, my family, and my whole life actually is really normal. I think I'm a really normal kind of person, actually. I don't associate myself with anything to do with celebrity or Z-list celebrity or whatever I am. I just think I'm a regular girl that likes regular stuff, like having regular friends. And I actually think the best things in life are found in the tiniest things in life. So the checkout girl is usually the funniest. The black cab driver will tell the best story. The people that I treasure the most are people that work in makeup or on the floor or behind the camera or the sound guy. They're always the treasures. It's the people in front of the camera that tend to be complete prats as it goes. And So it's I'm very much part of that normal set, I think. It's just my life's gone a little bit skewy. What I would say, and it's not at all what I would say in my defence, what I would say is, you know, I was sponsored through university by the Royal Intelligence Corps. My heart will always be with the British Army. I think the British Army are the best in the world, and my loyalty will always be with them. I lied to get into Sandhurst because I knew I was epileptic, but I so wanted to be part of the forces that I did that. I got through Sandhurst right to the point where you march up the steps, and I thought that would be enough for them to prove that I was okay. And I had a 35-year regular commission with them, which I was going to go on and complete. But they found out about my epilepsy and threw me out. And I absolutely respect that decision as well. An epileptic with an SA80 isn't a great idea. But that's why my career took a different path. So life is not a straight line. Life throws you curveballs, and sometimes you just have to move with those curveballs if your life isn't necessarily the straight line that you planned.
I mean, my parents worry a lot about what I do and, you know, the type of commentary that I'll sometimes receive, which is not on anywhere near the same level that you do. So your parents, I assume, read the coverage, hear about the death threats, watch you on TV being attacked. They must.
No,
they
they're
must.
not part of it at all. So they don't go on Twitter. Mum only got an iPad last year, and I just send them clips of me looking vaguely all right, and Mum says, "Ooh, that dress was nice," and that's it. So that's as far as they're not interested in this world at all, because in the West Country, people just get on with doing normal stuff, and media, as it is a sort of figment. It's sort of ethereal, isn't it? It doesn't really exist. Yeah.
So does anyone have any questions about Katie's sort of path to this? Yes, there's a man. There's a man here.
There's a man.
With
Hurrah.
a beard. With a beard.
Hi, Katie.
That's quite a deep voice, darling. Well done.
Can I just say I wanted to hate you on Celebrity Big Brother, but I actually ended up loving you because you were very entertaining.
Thank you.
The question I have goes back to your comment from earlier, where you said that there's been a massive amount of diagnoses of depression. But surely that's just because we've become better at diagnosing.
And that's absolutely right. In some, you know, there's always going to be a bit of this, a bit of that. Absolutely, we've become better at diagnosing. Absolutely, we've become more aware and knowledgeable about depression. But in a recent sample, and this was entered in the British Medical Journal, it was suggested that only 38% of individuals diagnosed with depression were actually correct diagnoses of depression. Others were just more like long-term sadness. So it is just a challenge of whether we've got that right. 1 in 10 Americans are now on Prozac or similar, and 1 in 4 women aged between 40 and 50 are on Prozac or similar, and that seems to me to be a huge amount of people. So that's just the challenge I have at the minute in my head.
But when you look at the fact that 1 in 4 of UK adults will suffer from some mental health issue in any given year, surely we should be highlighting that issue rather than playing it down?
Yes, and I think I've probably done a pretty good job of highlighting mental health issues over the last couple of days. I've just done it my way. And what that also does, of course, is give a massive platform and a massive voice to everybody that thinks the opposite of me, who I'm willing to retweet, to talk about, to accept their views, to be entirely open to other people's views. I don't think my view is necessarily right. I think there's probably a midway, but I'm really open to giving people that platform. What I do notice, actually, though, over the last couple of days, and it's been starting to bug me a bit, is how aggressively people seek to defend or tell me my view is wrong, which does suggest that this feeling of stigma is very strong. People are acutely defensive of their depression. I'm not questioning that, that's an interesting thing about life. We wouldn't be acutely defensive of cancer, for example, but we are acutely wishing to defend depression. So I guess that suggests the stigma is very strong. And you could argue that I'm encouraging that stigma as well.
Well, I'm glad you started a debate at least. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, let's go there, because to this lady in the second row. Oh, okay, we'll go over there. We'll
it's all gone very question time, where the microphone doesn't quite end up where Dimbleby wants it to go.
Hello. I also saw you on the Big Brother show, and I also thought, I'm going to hate her, but I enjoyed so much of what you had to say. And I thought that there was an intelligent response to some of the madness around you. However, when you came out, I also saw you on the Loose Women show, and you went down like a lead balloon. What's your view, therefore, of most of the people in front of the cameras?
In front of them, as in the people that I was sat with on the Loose
Women? You talked about the makeup people, the taxi drivers,
the people I love.
Who have, yeah, exactly. But the people in front, are they all stupid?
Oh no!
What's your view then? Because that you went down so badly on that.
That would be one view.
I think it's fair to say they didn't like you, isn't it?
It would be one view that I went down very badly.
Well, I enjoy you, but I viewed
No, it's absolutely fine. I'm saying that's one view. I guess the alternative view would be the huge deluge in excess of 2,000 complaints to the Loose or Moose Women panel, suggesting actually that their treatment of me was fairly appalling. I chose to rise above that. I asked Janet, street porter, if she'd let me talk. She wouldn't. She just kept thrusting her teeth in my face. I asked the grumpy Nolan individual if she'd let me talk. She looked away. And when I left the studios, she was just outside smoking about 150 B&H. So I'm sure that will help with her family's cancer issues. But ultimately, they weren't terribly happy because I was on their show. They are loyal to Nadia. Other people here are loyal to Nadia as well. And I would question that loyalty.
Couple of quick-fire questions from Twitter, and these really have to be quick-fire, Katie, so a couple of sentences each. So at Ed Coles, countryside question, because we mentioned this very briefly before, where do you stand on shooting?
I love a bit of shooting. Very good. Go, go, bang, bang. Well done. RSPB came out today in support of shooting. Go the Countryside Alliance.
At Baldy07 says, why doesn't the UK recognise our armed forces as much as the US? And why don't we fly our flags like they do over there either?
I know. Anything you do in the US, I spent 10 years working in Manhattan, living in the East Village. Everything you do, they sing the national anthem. You go running on a Sunday, they sing the national anthem. That's the way I would have it in the UK if I could.
Great. OK, so what interests me, right, you are this high-flying, or on your way to being a high-flying businesswoman, someone who claims that has absolutely no desire to be famous or become a celebrity.
Yes.
So what on earth made you apply to compete on The Apprentice, which is very well known to be a show loosely about business, but essentially for people who are attention-seeking and wanting a taste of fame. And I think that is fair to say.
That is fair.
So why did you apply?
I would say back in the time I applied, it was a little bit less like that.
Slightly, but you'd seen a few years of it.
So I was still in Manhattan, and I'd seen the version with Donald Trump. And actually, the apprentices over there get really good prizes, and actually Donald Trump is very credible as a businessman. I came back to the UK and I had 2 children in quick succession. I fired them out like shots from a tennis player. I've only got to smell the stuff, darlings, that's it. And anywho, I was in hospital and I just gave birth to my 2nd child, and my husband left with the secretary, who spent rather too much time behind the desk, I think, than in front of it. Now, absolutely, you can say, well, that's your own tough toots. You stole him. He toddled off with the secretary, and that's absolutely right and fair. So I got a taxi home from the hospital with my new child, and I decided, you know what? Boom, I'm going to do something completely different. I applied for The Apprentice, ended up on it, and obviously got to the end of that, and then left.
And so you seem to imply, so let's go there, that you don't think Lord Alan Sugar is a credible businessman. Why is that?
Oh, well, no, it's not that Lord Sugar's, look, bless him. It's not that Lord Sugar's not credible, it's just that he's very short. And I don't really like short men. He is nipple height, which is really weird, because I'm going to stand up. Is that okay?
Very briefly.
OK, I'm allowed to briefly stand. I've been told I wasn't allowed, so bugger it.
They can't see your head at home.
Well, tough toots, they've got a good shot. He's nipple height. And so the weird thing is, any shot you do with him, I won't walk around because that will really throw things off, but they put him there, I would be here, for example, and then the camera would be right over at that window in order to give the sense of perspective required to make him look like a normal height individual. So that's all, is I'm not big into short men.
So that's the reason you don't think he's a credible businessman?
Well, yeah, I think that's enough. No, and then also, now he doesn't actually run any businesses, so I think that's also sort of a credible reason why he's not a credible businessman.
He is no fan of yours, is he, these days?
Yeah,
do you think that's
get all right over a pint.
Do you think that's because you were the only contestant to actually
fire
ditch
Lord
him?
Sugar. Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of what made you as famous as you are today, isn't it?
We didn't go down terribly well. Yeah, I walked, and you know, there's a sort of unspoken thing that you're not allowed to speak about. So I guess we're off record here, right?
No.
No.
Not in any way whatsoever.
No. Is that you film this stuff in October, November. It comes to air April, May. So there's a big 6-month wait before the final. And during that 6 months, you're supposed to hang out in Brentwood. Now, darlings, I'll do many things, but I will not live in Brentwood.
That's not going to be popular with our readers.
Okay.
You also...
I'm not necessarily popular with a lot of people.
Now, I'm interested in what it's like in that household. Because the thing about The Apprentice, it's one of those only reality shows where you don't really get to see behind the scenes. And I think it's a hotbed of sex and controversy.
Very exciting.
And you did have a relationship with one of the other contestants. Well, you had a fling. You had a fling.
And so
what's it like in that house?
Yeah, behind the scenes in the house, it's really funny. So things like they show pictures in our house. There was like 5 bathrooms, but they took the taps off, 4 of them, so that we'd had to fight over the shower in the morning. And yes, we're not allowed to talk about this either. So yes, do it. That phone call in the morning, that is totally not like it seems. So somebody, especially the boys, they pack special pants, and we're all upstairs, all changed. Somebody puts their special pants on, runs down, answers the phone, and pretends to wake everybody up. So stuff like that. But yeah, you don't eat much in the house. You don't sleep much in the house, actually. You don't spend a lot of time in the house. You spend about 2-3 days shooting every task. So it's quite, it's intensive, but I know they've made it a lot quicker to shoot now, just from budgetary perspective. Yawn. Yes.
If anyone's got any questions at home, by the way, please tweet hashtag at Ask Katie, either about I'm a Celebrity or The Apprentice. We'll come to them in a second. And you guys think about any I'm a Celebrity or Apprentice questions too. So you leave The Apprentice, right? Say that you're on the path to going back to being a businesswoman, then attempted back to the world of celebrity by signing up for I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which again surprised a lot of people because you had said that you didn't want to be seen as a celebrity. So what happened there?
So I came out of The Apprentice, and then the whole affair thing was happening with Mark, the pictures in the paper. It all blew up. And this whole media attention, I honestly didn't expect that when I went into The Apprentice. That was a whole new game to me. And so when I'm a Celeb came along, I decided to just run away, and that's exactly what I did. And most people actually have no clue that I was ever on I'm a Celebrity, which is quite an achievement, I think, in itself. And in fact, Katie Price, inside the CBB house, bet me 100 quid for charity that I was never on it. So I took her up on that bet. I don't think she's paid up yet. But yes, certainly I was the non-existent person. I kept a low profile. I didn't do much. I like eating. I eat quite a lot, not as much as you. And I'm
looking forward to the obesity discussion, Katie.
So nobody really knows I was on I'm a Celeb.
I mean, you were so boring.
Yeah, I think that may be true.
Which I think is why people think, let's be honest, why people think that you came away and sort of created a bit of a persona and a bit of a character. You reinvented yourself as the shock jock of the UK.
I don't think I was that cunning. I think I was just, after The Apprentice, I just wanted it to kind of go away for a bit. You know, there were people camped outside my parents' house. I kind of wanted that to be over, and this seemed like a good kind of escape from that. But I appreciate why that would appear that way, absolutely.
Does anyone have any questions about The Apprentice or I'm a Celebrity? Okay, we've got one here from the lady in the front row. While we're just getting you the mic, very quick one. At Sophie G on Twitter says, which show did you find harder, The Apprentice or Celebrity Big Brother?
I think I think Celebrity Big Brother was actually harder, not obviously in an intellectual sense. Dear God. More in a sort of, more in a sense of being restricted and not having access to things that I love. So we had no watches, not that I particularly love my watch, but time. We didn't have pens or paper. You know, I write notes all day, every day, all the time. Anything someone says, something I see, something I've read. I just spat, sorry. I write all the time. There was no pens in that house. So it's stuff like that. That was the hard stuff, and obviously the big
wrote your son column. But,
I still wrote my son column.
Lovely lady in the front row. What is your question?
Speaking from an uncle that changed his will to leave his money to Donkey Sanctuary, and also suffering depression. And when I was depressed, the last thing I wanted to do was tweet about it. And having a husband that was never interested in Big Brother until you went in it.
Oh.
So I think he was truthful, and I think he was robbed.
Oh, well, thank you. I thought that was going to end quite badly, actually. Thank you. That's very gracious.
So after I'm a Celebrity, we sort of lose you for a little bit, and then you re-emerge as the shock jock, the commentator on This Morning, causing issues, taking people on, saying things that no one else maybe wants to say.
Anyone here called Tyler?
And of course, that is referring to the fact that probably the first debate for you that went viral was over the names of children.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was that sort of, some might say, ironic moment within the clip when Holly and Phil pointed out that your child is in fact called India.
That's so true, isn't it? And I was never going to get away from that. You know, and that's the thing. People still tell me now on Twitter, they go, but you've got a child called India. Like, I don't know that. And I'm always like, yes, you win that one. Everyone wins that one every time. But actually,
easy one.
Yeah, easy one. But absolutely, me being a complete plonker. But what the whole basis of that thing was, there was a really dull survey from some terrible mums organisation, which shall not be named for fear of causing offence. But it was about child's names and how we think about what we call our children. Oh, yes. And I made the reference to the fact that obviously it wasn't relevant to any particular school at all, ever. Definitely not any of my children were in, legal. But I said, you know, it's those mums that you hear in the morning at Tyler, Chardonnay, Destiny. Oh, and you're like, yeah, I can see your destiny right there, darling. Oh. Storm, will you stop biting Hunter? And actually, a fun story, there was a complaint, well, there was loads of complaints. I say a complaint. Remembering this wasn't about a particular school, legal, there were loads of complaints to my school, and I made a promise to myself that I would do the school run the next morning after that debate. But the school rang me to say they were going to put on the school newsletter that there had been a lot of complaints about Katie Hopkins. So I reminded them, from a legal perspective, it couldn't have been about any one school, because legally that would have been wrong. So that didn't happen. But yeah, I did get that phone call from the school.
And then there were, after that, you sort of
Still
created this persona, and there were two specific moments on that show that really brought you to the public consciousness around the world, actually. And I want to talk about both of them. The first is obviously your debate with the late Peaches Geldof, which I think still to this day massively divides people, because look, obviously at the time the view was very much that Peaches had whooped your ass, you know, and then obviously the great irony, within a matter of months she's dead from a heroin overdose. And so I think probably regardless of how she was as a parent, you're obviously not a good mum if that's your situation. But at the time, the general view was that Peaches had been the first person to sort of triumph against you on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a view that she won that debate. I'd say that she did a fairly cracking job, actually. That debate was on, off, on, off, on, off. It was kind of one of those that you didn't know. And then she did make it. And then after the debate, she was sort of really overexcited, really thrilled, and then wanted to do photos and was thrilled about how it had gone. So you kind of you know, kind of, that was a good thing in a way, because you felt like she was really pleased how it had gone. So that was great. I'm happy to give her the debate, absolutely. But then after, when she died, and then, you know, her syringes were found in boxes of sweets, and her son had been crawling around for X number of hours, I did write a Sun column, actually, that was my response, because everyone was writing about how shocking it was that Katie hasn't expressed her sorrow on Twitter, which I consider to be the most sort of vacuous sort of way of expressing any kind of sorrow. It's a competition over who can be sorry the first. I think Gary Lineker got there, somehow typing through his tears about how terrible the tragedy was. And I always felt that that was a vacuous way of expressing sorrow. Also, if somebody from a council estate had been caught in that predicament, they wouldn't have been kind of made into this kind of angel that she was. And that was my issue with it, is that we have a different response for people. And then I don't see why celebrity should somehow elevate your death into a status that it doesn't deserve.
Although I think the problem was at the time is that no one actually knew for certain how she had died. It wasn't until the inquest a number of months later.
I think if you'd met her where I met her, you'd have known why she died. Yeah.
And then the second was obviously your debates on the show about weight and obesity, which is something that you have obviously explored a lot more recently with a show for TLC where you had to put on, was it 6 stone?
No, I put on nearly 4 stone. Yeah. 4
stone. And again, like the depression debate, you don't believe that there are any medical or psychological reasons or just simply physical reasons why anyone would be overweight.
Well, I think there's a tiny, tiny percentage of people that have a genuine medical reason, tiny percentage over there, but for the majority, there are just excuses. And so I decided it would be a good idea to prove I wasn't lucky to be skinny. And actually, if I sat on my arse and ate 6,500 calories a day for 3 months, look, I'm a chubster as well. And so it turned out I put on 4 stone.
But here's the thing, though.
Hold on, chubster. I put on 4 stone.
OK, no, well, I'm going to interrupt you there.
I put on 4 stone in 3 months to prove that fat people are lazy. And actually, I'm rather proud of that. It's been watched by 12 million people. It's sold around the world. There's 5,000 members of a fat club now, 2,000 members online. And actually, we are changing people's lives for the better because they don't have excuses anymore. Carry on, fat boy.
No, but here's the point. Here's the point, Katie, because actually, even when you'd put on all of that weight, which was a struggle for you to do, you fundamentally were not a large person, particularly. You know, you got the flab out and that sort of thing, but then when you were dressed, you looked absolutely fine. You are someone who is physically built to be thin, and you have absolutely no idea of the battles that people have physically.
So you can predict, obviously, what kind of surface level journalisms will try and attack you with. And so I decided, let's really hit the excuses. So I didn't have a personal trainer. I didn't have a nutritionist. I didn't have membership to a posh gym. Still don't believe in them, think they're rubbish. All I had was a pair of shoes, a pair of running shoes to lose this weight. And that was and I also lost it outside of working hours because that's really another challenge a lot of people have. But also because I recognise that people would say it's easy for you because you're a skinny person. I also brought a team of 4 people, my fat club, with me on my weight loss journey. They've been fat for a very long period of time. Some of them had mental sort of relationships with food. Some of them had had children. Some of them had been quite depressed, actually. I mean, they lost 9.5 stone between them in 3 months as well. So I think I rather disproved that.
Mm-hmm. But I am someone, I have very openly spoken about my...
3 months with me.
That would be absolute hell on earth.
But we will be skinny at the end.
But I might be, but I think I'd rather be the size. But no, I've been someone who has very, very openly spoken about my battles with my weight.
Yeah.
I have been a lot heavier than this, almost double the size of this. I've also been about half the size of this, quite genuinely. And I know what difficulties there are, and I know that you don't, in the same way that you don't necessarily know about depression, and I've never been depressed, but I understand that people are.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that, because I spent a lot of time with a lot of people during my fat story, and halfway through it was that kind of idea, look, I don't think there's any excuses for being overweight, but I do understand people have their reasons. So I think you're underestimating the journey I went on, I think as a 40-year-old woman, to put your body through that to prove a point. It's quite a brave thing.
But you still think you clearly still think, based on tonight, that it's acceptable
I know.
to belittle someone based on their weight.
I know, if you live,
or put them down.
because
is that helpful?
we can both banter, and I know you can take it because you give it. But I think if you live with me for 4 months, we could sort you out. Do it, darling.
Definitely
Do
not.
it. I've got a spare
Anyone
bedroom.
have
Do it.
any questions about any of those big controversies? Yes, I think we'll go to this lady here, and then we'll go to that man right at... Is that a man or a woman? Woman right at the back. So
gender neutral.
We'll get 2 mics out. We'll get 2 mics out. But just while we're doing... Oh, you've got the mic. Brilliant. Let's go.
Mine's more of a comment. I am...
we want questions,
yeah,
though.
But I'm not happy with your comment about the fat people thing, because I am fat, and I have lost 1.5 stone in 2 months since watching Katie Hopkins' My Fat Story, and so have about 1,000 other people who are on the Fat Club on Facebook. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I have been fat a long time, since I was about 13, so about 10 years.
Nice
so
work. Nice work.
A question, this person at the back.
Yeah,
To the man or woman?
Beautiful
Can I just say,
woman.
I'm not actually a man.
Stunning. Stunning.
But also, before I say my question, I just want to say that I'm also of Pakistani origin. I'm proud, and nobody in my family has got any sort of links to any sexual abuse or anything.
Okay.
And I'm also sat next to my friend Chantel, who's an academic and who's got a fantastic job. And we sat through your debate and we laughed at it because she disproves you. But having said all of that...
Chantel, stand up, stand up. Big round of applause for Chantel.
She's great. But yeah, I mean, despite all of that, I do really enjoy watching your debates. I really agree with a lot of what you say, and I think you're really brave and actually a lot of the time massively entertaining as well. I saw some clips from My Fat Story, and I'm also an very, very fatty. I wasn't inspired by you, but I have been through the journey. But I did see some clips of you on there, really, really upset and, you know, tearful and, you know, feeling sorry for yourself, and I think rightly so. Has that given you a new perspective? Do you now feel bad belittling people based on their weight, now that you've felt what it's like to be a fat person, to be bullied for their weight, and to be looked down upon just because you're larger? Has that given you a new perspective?
I think it's really, firstly, to your friend Chantel and your good self, I think it's very gracious of you even to be here, to be honest. I'm not sure I would come along to a debate to someone that's been as intolerant as I have, so I think that's very gracious, firstly. But secondly, yeah, I did get very upset during My Fat Story. I found it to be a dreadful experience. I hated that 3 months. I would never do it again, and actually, if it hadn't been my idea, I would have quit, and I haven't quit at anything yet. And I wore dreadful pyjamas, which was also unfortunate, really, if you're going to be filmed, right?
They were pretty bad.
Yeah, so I can take the mickey out of Dan because we work together. That's okay for me. I like to think we're on a par.
Of course.
Just getting myself out of that one. But no, I do have I do understand that, and I totally understand now what it's like to get to your back door and put your stuff on and your running shoes or whatever, but not want to go out that door. And I used to run behind people and think, Jesus, look at the size of that. And I never do that anymore. I smile at them and think, yeah, go on you, go on, go on. And that's my thing now, and that's why Fat Club is really special to me, thank you, is because I can help encourage other people and post pictures of myself looking dreadful in stupid running kit and come on, let's do this thing. And I actually really love that. But thank you for your question.
I think we're going to move on to the final topic of the night now, Celebrity Big Brother, which we all want to talk about. But I think the one point I would make, just to wrap up on that, though, is that
You're trying to have the last
word. No, you can respond. But most people who are overweight do not eat anywhere near 6,500 calories a day.
That was never the suggestion. But to become every woman, the woman that has put on a stone, had a baby, put on another stone, got comfortable, put on another stone. I had to do that in a compressed time period. Otherwise, from a production schedule for filming, it would have been very expensive.
Now, so obviously, you this year, we've got a bit of a track record going here for someone who obviously doesn't seek the limelight or want to be famous or be known as a celebrity at all, even a D-lister or a Z-lister. You then, for some reason, decide to sign up for Celebrity Big Brother. When you've already got a brilliant job at The Sun, so you definitely didn't need the money. So why on earth?
I thought that this is voluntary. I work for here for free, no? Yeah.
So why on earth did you decide to put yourself into what you knew was going to be a celebrity circus?
So, I've been offered Celebrity Big Brother for eons, maybe 4 times, 5 times, no. And I'd always say, I won't do it unless I can write my column in the house. And that was the kind of condition. And then it came up again for the January one, which is always the better one because everyone's at home because there's nothing else to do because we're so damn cold we can't go out. And I thought, look, I'll give it a go. They said I can write my Sun column. That's good. I didn't know about anybody else going in. I never looked. I never researched. I never listened to any of the gossip. So I said I'll go in. And actually, going in as the most hated candidate of all time, I thought, well, that's cushy. I'll be out in 2 weeks. So that went a little bit Pete on.
And what about the money? I mean, what did you get? That must have been the motivation. Was it $500,000? That's what's been rumoured.
How much are you paid here?
You're not interviewing me, which is great.
How much are you paid? What is your salary? How much are you worth?
So was it $500,000? Is that what got you in there?
They said Kelly. What's that crazy boxer lady called?
Kelly Maloney. Not at all crazy.
I think they said she was rumoured to be paid $400K. Now, if anybody believes that, really, did I get more? You're definitely not getting this out of me.
Less than £400,000, but still a good payday. And then you obviously instantly clash with perhaps someone who unbelievably made you look nice and normal, Perez Hilton. He really did initially sort of, I think, steal a lot of your sort of thunder, didn't he? Because he was the one we were all talking about out here to begin with. Did you know that's what was happening inside? Did you get a sense that he was the focus out here?
No, because I've become very respectful over the years of the edit room, and I always say never blame the edit. You know, let the edit suite do its job. Now, if that's to make me look like a monstrous villain, absolutely fine, I accept that. You hear people on the bake-off saying, oh, I was edited to look like I couldn't cook a Victoria sponge. And you think, oh, get over yourself. Look, if you're going to put yourself out there on telly, accept the fact that the edit suite will make you look any way they want to. Accept that, or go home, sit on your sofa and watch it instead. So I accepted going into Big Brother. I could have been also the biggest villain of all time ever. Fortunately, there was an even bigger twat than me, and that was Perez. And I accept that, and I could see in there, thank you, I could see in there that he probably wasn't coming across well, but you don't know because you're so isolated, you have no idea. And then it wasn't till that, and I was up for nomination, I was nominated every single eviction, which I rather respected the house for, actually. Because if you're going to be kept in that place, be kept in by the public. Don't be kept in by people trying to be your friend, because nobody's your friend. And it wasn't until that first eviction where we heard, get Perez out. And it was brilliant. I loved it. I went round the house chanting it for absolutely hours and hours and hours. And then, of course, the next time we had Nadia, your best friend. Ooh. And it was like, yes, come on, maybe good does win out over evil. So that was very charming, actually, and it does go to show that somebody has a really poor taste in friends. So yeah, that was really, really reassuring, and a great thing that the British public can see bad. And actually, the edit suite did me a massive favour, and ultimately, Perez probably did me a massive favour, because I would have been the villain otherwise.
And then Katie Price enters the house, and we are all expecting fireworks because you have slagged her off for many years in various places. She has massively slagged you off, and obviously we're expecting fireworks. She's paid a heck of a lot of money to go in, with all of the producers wanting that. And then you sort of become friends, or get on very well, and sort of are both very complimentary to each other. What was that about? Because, you were both going against what you'd said about each other publicly.
I mean, ultimately, she came into the house super nervous. She was shaking like a little thing when she got in, which wasn't great to see, actually. You don't wish for someone to be that scared. And then also, she was really injured by her boobage. I don't know which one it was. Looking under her T-shirt. Yeah, this one. So she had a really... Is this okay? We're not past the watershed, are we?
No.
But so she had a massively leaky boob because it was falling out. So there was a 2-inch hole under this boob. where the boob was falling out. And so we were dealing with that, keeping an eye on it. I had to measure it one time using a piece of toilet roll to say, well, it's now this big. The hole under her boob is this big. I went into the shower with her to help wash her hair because she couldn't lift this arm up any higher, which is someone who's dislocated their arms. I get that pain, but her pain was from a boob job that had gone wrong. And actually one night we were given music, which was blooming epic, because I got to dress like Barbara Streisand and dance. And her mic pack fell on the floor, and she thought it was her boob implant hitting the deck. And she went, shit, my tit. And we were all like, oh my God, her boob's actually fallen out. But by the end, it started to smell really bad. She was out more days than she was in. And so that whole smelly boob thing wasn't so great.
And she's then said that you smell. So you both came out of the house and then attacked each other for smelling funny, which was very weird to me. But,
yeah.
But do you think it's fair that she ended up beating you? Because obviously it did end up being both of you in the final, given that she wasn't in there from the start. And as you say, was out and in.
You know, this isn't the 100-metre final at the Olympics, is it? It's not, you know, is one of your kids well, are they poorly? It's Celebrity Big Brother. It really didn't matter to me. I just felt there were more deserving winners. For me, Callum, I thought was fantastic, and Michelle Visage, I thought was authentic right through the experience. And I just felt like someone who was barely there, had a boob falling out, and was in surgery or her hairdressers more than she was in the house, probably didn't ought to win. But, you know, that's just me.
Now, what we're going to do now is let you guys ask some more questions to wrap up. But what I would just ask, because we are tight for time, you can save your fawning praise for Katie until after the event, and let's just ask some quick fire questions.
Want me complimented.
So if we, not in this case. So if we get the mic around the room, we'll try and take quite a few if we can get the two mics going. So we'll get this man down the front, and then we'll go to this lady in that row there if we can get the mics ready.
Hello, Lady Thatcher.
No, that's a compliment. Come on. That's good news. I'm happy with that.
Firstly, side point, being 90% air myself, how did you put on any weight? Because I can't do it either.
No.
And secondly, before you went in the Big Brother house, you said people that go on there are committing career suicide.
Yes.
Now you've been on there,
yes,
and more people like you, is your career dead?
That's such a funny thing, isn't it? So putting on weight for me was horrendous. 5 of those 2-litre things of Mars bar milkshake a day, plus 6 main meals in between there, and then I slept with a bucket next to my bed. So it was extreme in that way. That's how you put weight on. It's not advisable, I suppose. And then career suicide, yeah. I guess if you start off as a complete cow, the only way to go is up. And that's really how I figured it. I got to write my column, which kept me moderately sane. They let me write it between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. each, whatever day they allowed. They allocated me a sort of word processor to write it on, no connection to the internet. Actually, for me, it's been, I guess, a really lovely thing. Whilst I'm not so great at compliments, people got to see maybe a little bit more of me than 140 characters or 2 minutes on a sofa. Yeah.
Quick fire, we're doing quick fire, so we'll come to this lady here. You've got the mic, and then we'll go right back to that man there, please.
Right, Katie, sorry.
Oh, mate.
So, the microphone's good.
You really want to ask this question.
Sorry.
No, you go.
On the race row, how do you feel about the rise in anti-Semitism in the UK?
Yeah.
And actually the increase on racism in this country. And do you think any of the political parties that are currently standing actually have any sway on controlling it?
Mm. So this was a question about...
20-second answer.
Yeah, hold on, I've got to say the question because no one heard it. Race, are we doing anything about it? Anti-Semitism in this country, je suis Charlie, etc. And I don't think anybody's really addressing it. I notice anti-Semitism is the least popular one to address in any way. We hear a lot about Islamophobia, but I don't hear much about anti-Semitism as it goes. That seems to be the very least popular of the racist causes to support. And I would question that most severely, and certainly those attacks are definitely on the rise, and that's why I think any form of flag waving, be it Palestinian, be it Pakistani, be it anything, has the danger of creating tensions. It seems to me to be the opposite of community cohesion.
Okay, who's got the mics? Who's got the mics? Yes, there.
Hello, Katie. Good evening. Nice to meet you. I might be subconsciously trying to wind you up with this question.
You're like Saul on the road to Damascus, darling. The massive light behind you. Anyway,
you.
do crack on.
So obviously in light of comic relief, which we've had recently, and also the budget for 2015, we've seen, I think it's just over 12 billion for foreign aid. A lot of this is going to countries like, for example, India, which has a space program, China, which is the second largest economy in the world, and then you've got other countries that have got a terrible human rights record, you know, executing homosexuals or capital punishment for women and men for all sorts of things. Do you think this money could be better spent elsewhere, given all the cuts we've seen recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So is the foreign aid budget worth it? No, absolutely it's not. I'd cull the foreign aid budget tomorrow. Other countries are using our foreign aid to purchase arms. I find that to be a completely peculiar situation where we're not supporting our British forces when they need support. So for me, I'd cull that foreign aid budget, absolutely leave it to Comic Relief and others to sort that out, and I would give it all to our British military because I'm completely fond of them. They have my heart.
Okay, so we'll take two final questions. Who wants the last two? If we go to these two.
Katie?
Well, yes, sir.
Well, we all think you're fantastic. I've got two questions for you. One was a very flippant question, which is, we all know that left-wing people aren't very good in bed. So, yes. Who's better in the sack, you or Rod Liddle?
Who's better in the sack, me or Rod Liddle?
Yes.
Well, I have slept with him, and I can say that it was a very disappointing experience, and he writes better than he does.
Absolutely. The other one was a more serious question, which is your views on Pakistani men in Yorkshire flying the Pakistani flag, or the Pakistanis in Yorkshire flying the flag for 1 hour. Are those views genuinely held beliefs, or are they just nasty rabble-rousing to sell more papers?
Oi, oi, oi. I don't think someone would put themselves out there if that was just to sell a few papers, if I'm honest with you. In 2010, Rochdale failed to raise the St. George's flag. And I find that deeply offensive individually as a person and also for our country. I also find it offensive.
St. George's flag or the Union Jack? Which one?
No, it's the St. George's flag they failed to raise,
so it's now about English nationalism.
I find it offensive that people are slightly liable to jest at the St. George's flag. I find that people have things thrust through their letterbox asking people to take down the St. George's flag. For me, the Union Jack is something...
No one has anything taken down.
The Union is something I am proud of. The Union flag is something I am proud of. If we're going to wave any flag, we need to wave the Union, and I think it's time that we stop people raising, for example, the Pakistani flag over town halls. I disagree with it fundamentally.
Well, it was only raised for 1 hour by your own acknowledgement.
Let's go to these two because we're doing quick-fire questions. So we'll go to this.
Okay, well, we're all a fan anyway, Katie. Well done.
Thank you very much.
With your rabble-rousing views.
Okay, we'll go to the front. Last two questions of the night.
Hi, Katie. Hi, darling. 1 second. Can you give me that mic? Okay. If someone could just remove the microphone from the rabble raiser, that would be marvellous.
But no, you want to... No, but Katie,
carry on, darling.
You said you wanted to hear from everyone with all views.
I do, but remember this was a quick fire. I'd rather quick fire him in the old forehead. Carry on, darling. Security probably might remove.
You've got a security guard. That's the revelation.
Carry on, darling. We're going to listen to you.
Hi, Katie. Firstly, thank you for dealing with that troll Perez. Hated him.
Okay.
My second question, well, my first question is...
You're only allowed one.
Well, tough.
Pick the best one. Pick the best one. Go good.
Basically, in a year in Big Brother where it was just warning, 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 booted out, booted out, booted out, you didn't receive one official warning, do you think Big Brother was particularly lenient on you? Because going in as quite an offensive character where you go out and offend people, you were saying quite some nasty things to people, and I know that a lot of people, especially people that are here today, were accusing you of almost bullying people.
So were you surprised by that?
I was quite strong with people. I kept the same line throughout, so I always told Perez he was an utter twat, and I kept with that line. I was taken up to the diary room to ask if I would like to lodge an official complaint about Perez for sticking his tongue down my throat, and I chose not to do that because that's not the British way, it's not my way. I dealt with him in my own sweet way, which was getting him kicked out of the house. I think that's far more noble.
Okay, and second question to this lovely lady here. Yes.
Hiya,
Last
Kate.
question of the night before we go to
Probably
these
a very
final
apt
three.
question. If you were voted the Prime Minister, so let's assume for 3 minutes you're the Prime Minister, what's the first 3 policies you'll introduce into England?
A little bit harsh. The BNP are in the house. Well done. So my first 3 things as... Oh, God, I'm being told to sit down. I'm shit at sitting down. Prime Minister, stand, darling. Right. So the first 3 things I would do when I am Prime Minister of this country, I would absolutely reward workers. I think it's absolutely imperative that workers are rewarded. So I would cut taxes for the working population. Secondly, I would continue to cull welfare and benefits. If you can't be asked to get a job, I'm not interested in you. And thirdly, I would cull the foreign aid budget completely. I'm not interested in your country. I'm interested in my country, and my country deserved to have more money spent on it, and I would give it to our fantastic British forces.
We're just going to end with 3 questions from all of the amazing people who've been watching tonight, and thank you so much for staying tuned on Sun Plus on our live stream. So from @Jamie174, he says, Snog, marry, kill, Perez Hilton, Denise Welsh and Nadia Sawalha.
Oh my word. Well, I mean, I've already snogged Perez because he forced his tongue down my throat.
So you do that again?
So we snogged that, disgusting. And he's put on loads of weight as well, naughty Perez. Marry, was it?
Yes, and kill.
You're not allowed to roll your eyes, that's not neutral. I'd marry Nadia just so I could annoy the bloody hell out of her on a daily fricking basis. And I'd kill Denise Welch just to put the poor old trout out of her misery. I mean, really.
I love Denise. She's watching tonight, I think.
You love all of my adversaries, darling.
@Becca Argent says, do you have a fear? If so, what is it?
Do I have a fear?
Yeah.
A fear?
I'm from New Zealand. Do you want to be racist about that?
My fear? Try some vowels, darling. No, I have no fear. I'm 40 and fearless. And that's something I'm really proud of, actually. Fabulous. Oh, darling, thank you.
And finally, the last question of the night from @CallieMag88. Thank you for your question. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
What was her name?
CallieMag88.
We'll let her off, Kelly. Yeah, where do I see myself in a couple of years?
10 years.
10 years. In 10 years, I will be no, I think I'll be in Boris's cabinet. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. Obviously, massive appreciation to Katie as well. For being as forthright as ever. And you can obviously read her glittering column in The Sun every Friday, and you can read mine 6 days a week.
Oy, oy, oy.
So thank you so much, everyone, for coming.